Hi, my name is Bas and I'm a managing director at Carbon Equity. So the first megatrend we're seeing currently in the market is what we call the electrification of everything. So this has been something that's going on for decades at a very gradual pace, but something that is really accelerating in the current market as we're seeing battery prices plummet, we're seeing the cost of solar cells plummet, and it makes it possible to electrify more and more use cases in today's economy, and something that will clearly accelerate over the decade to come. So the second mega trend we're currently seeing in the market is what we call strategic independence, and it's something that has become very painfully clear again by the Iran war, that we're way too dependent on the import of fossil fuels from other countries. But now we're actually electrifying, which is great. We're way too dependent on particularly China for the whole value chain, the whole supply chain of critical minerals, of battery cells, solar cells, and it's something we're seeing massive investments in is both in Europe and US to start onshoring these supply chains and actually start manufacturing our own critical components. The third mega trend we're currently seeing in the market is the age of AI. All the tech majors are spending tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars to build their own AI infrastructure. And all these AI infrastructure data centers, they need access to clean, reliable power, but also very critical components like cooling equipment, like transformers, and a lot of portfolio companies are playing into these themes. These megatrends I just talked about in itself are very interesting, but what is even more powerful is that these megatrends are actually coming together and are very much tied to each other. And what this actually means for investors is that there are a lot of sub-industries or pockets that are heavily impacted by these megatrends. And let me just highlight a few to give you a few examples. So renewable energy is great, but there is an intermittency problem. Wind and solar are not always there. And because we're electrifying our whole economy and data centers need a lot of electricity, there is high demand for what we call baseload power. 24/7 available, reliable, clean power. And we're seeing massive investments in our portfolio at the moment, both in geothermal energy, but also a whole renaissance around nuclear energy and anything around backup generation. So the second very interesting industry we're currently seeing are robotics. Especially driven by AI, robots are getting so much better and more efficient, and we're seeing a lot of very interesting use cases in our portfolio. So for instance, we're having drones and robots doing the whole maintenance and repair of large wind parks, but we're also seeing drones being used to actually string power lines or apply coatings to them to make them more energy efficient. And with robots getting better and better, we're expecting a lot more of those in our portfolio over the coming decades. So what does this mean for Carbon Equity? Well, we're benefiting massively from this. Our strategy has always been to build very broad diversification and exposure to the whole energy transition, and then really double down on the industries that are having a lot of traction. And we've built very meaningful exposure to some of these category defining companies leading the way in geothermal energy, nuclear energy, robotics, or electrification. And it's quite exciting to see this play out.